Well, yesterday was a perfect encapsulation of what conference realignment season actually is. Conflicting reports all over the place from reputable sources, including Dennis Dodd, who we're going to talk about once again here today. But the day started with news that the Big 12 was, in fact, pursuing not 4, but 6 Pac-12 schools, with Oregon and Washington being in the mix. Then we got reports on the other end. The Pac-12 is actually working on a deal, some sort of alliance, if you will, with the ACC. And we end the day with Dennis Dodd coming back around to say, yes, there is a loose plan for an alliance between the Pac-12 and the ACC. So what does it all mean, and what is coming up next in all of this? We discussed that today here in this video. Welcome in. I'm John Kurtz. Here on this channel, we talk college football all week. I go live on Wednesday and Sunday, sprinkling content throughout the week. You get it from a Big 12 slant here. But if you have not subscribed, I would encourage you to subscribe, especially right now in realignment season when everything is happening very hot and heavy. So again, yesterday started with a Dennis Dodd report that Oregon and Washington were potentially on the table for the Big 12, that was something that was being discussed, along with the 4 other schools. And it was confirmation that there was a meeting set up between the Big 12 and Arizona, Arizona State, Colorado, and Utah. Then we had John Canzano, who you've heard mentioned before here on this channel, very reputable Pac-12 reporter, who is an Oregon columnist and radio host. And he came out saying basically that was not true, that the Pac-12 is very committed to each other right now, that George Kliavkov, his big quote was kicking you-know-what, kicking blank, kicking butts, giving you the YouTube-friendly version of that quote here. And then later in the day, we have Dennis Dodd coming back around and saying, yes, there is in fact some sort of a loose agreement in place between the Pac-12 and the ACC. So from the article, it says the ACC and Pac-12 have discussed what has been termed a loose partnership that could end the season with the conferences playing in a championship game in Las Vegas, sources confirmed to CBS Sports. The concept, believed to have been proposed by the ACC, so interesting, is a way for the conference's common rights holder, ESPN, to increase the value of their current media rights contracts. Really great for fueling that thought of like all the strings being pulled by ESPN and Fox in conference realignment, right? This was done by the ACC and ESPN to help out the Pac-12 and in turn try to help out the ACC's TV contract, because as we know, the ACC is desperate to do whatever they can to add value to that contract, which is just a dead weight and really an albatross on their conference right now. More from the article, it's not likely this proposal would have much impact, considering ESPN has cost certainty with the ACC in a contract lasting through 2036. The Pac-12 is trying to survive after the loss of USC and UCLA to the Big Ten in 2024. Rights for the Pac-12 teams without the California Powers are now worth about $30 million annually, down from approximately $42 million per program with the Bruins and Trojans in the fold. And here, Dennis Dodd references John Canzano first reported the proposed Pac-12 discussing a loose partnership with another conference Tuesday afternoon, noting some regular season crossover games could be played in addition to the championship game. I don't know, all feels like a Band-Aid on a broken leg to me. This does not feel like it's going to fix all the Pac-12's problems, all the Pac-12's ills, or the ACC's. And we just saw there it's not likely to add that much TV value for the ACC. And the term loose partnership, the fact that that is being used, can we get a marketing person on this? I don't feel like that gives off great energy or vibes for the Pac-12 and the ACC, particularly the Pac-12 here is really trying to save itself right now. Just a loose partnership when you just got burned by something you called the alliance, which involved one of these leagues, to me is a little bit laughable. And I'm not sure that this is the concrete solution of George Kliavkov kicking you-know-what. We'll see, but color me skeptical when it's being termed just a loose partnership. Back to the article. Sources indicate the proposal is viewed as a strengthened numbers move. While the 24 combined ACC and Pac-12 teams wouldn't have nearly the clout of the 32 programs combined in the SEC and Big Ten, it would be something to combat the growing financial gap between those burgeoning super conferences and everyone else. It just feels like posturing. I mean, it feels like posturing, and the Pac-12 strategy, I'm sure, is to throw this out there at Oregon and Washington and say, look, I mean, you won't have to go slum it in the Big 12. You can play some of these cross-conference games with the ACC. We'll have a little bit of extra TV money. It'll help our deal a little bit. And let's just rush to the altar and get this thing signed and get you guys on board. You're not going to have to go find a temporary home. And maybe it does add a little bit of value to their TV contract, but I can't imagine it's much. And I still am skeptical of that $30 million figure. I mean, when the Big 12 lost Texas and Oklahoma, everybody said 50%, 50%. Then we were hearing 40%. And so to go from 42 to 30 That doesn't seem like 40%. I'm no mathematician, but it still seems like that may be a little bit high for what the perceived value of these schools is right now. Another thing that did happen, and I will say this in the Pac-12's defense, I suppose, from yesterday, is that we got statements from both Colorado and Arizona State, obviously two of the schools rumored to be talking to the Big 12. So a statement from Colorado Chancellor Philip DiStefano and Athletic Director Rick George. CU Boulder supports the decision of the Pac-12 Board of Directors this morning to begin conference media rights negotiations. We are committed to the Pac-12 Conference and look forward to being an active participant in these conversations. Arizona State, this is from Ray Anderson, their Athletic Director. ASU remains fully committed to the Pac-12 Conference. ASU continues to work closely with the other remaining conference members to advance the best interests of its student athletes as well as support the continued success of the conference itself. Okay, there you go. That is what you're getting from Colorado and Arizona State. They at least put out something to kind of push everybody away from that story that was initially, hey, they're all talking and have a meeting scheduled with the Big 12. That feels like their way of denying that that's happening right now, at least publicly. But again, it's conference realignment. Everybody is talking out both sides of their mouth, and I think that is really evidenced by the reporting that we're getting from guys that, again, say what you will about Dennis Dodd or even John Canzano if you want, but are pretty reputable reporters and getting information on total opposite sides of the spectrum. All right, so from the article, with the Pac-12 and the Big 12 in flux, ACC schools are becoming increasingly aware of a media rights gap that could approach $50 million per year compared to the SEC and Big 10. It's been widely speculated that some combination of Clemson, Florida State, and Miami could be a fit if the SEC chooses to expand again. So the ACC part of this is also coming into focus now, where we're hearing more and more. I saw Josh Pate, who covers college football for 24/7 Sports yesterday, say a source told him, quote, we'll figure it out in court in terms of getting Florida State, Miami, Clemson to the SEC potentially. That, like, if the desire is there from the SEC, the prevailing thought seems to be at this point that it will happen. They'll just go ahead and do that. So I guess for the ACC now, they're trying to patchwork their situation up a little bit and add a little bit of extra money into the pot if they can for their big boys to keep them more happy. But I don't know. It seems like the ACC is kind of on edge if they're the ones not only agreeing to this move, but being the ones that propose this move. I think you can see that everybody right now is a little bit antsy. I'm not saying that the Big 12 shouldn't be a little bit antsy, but it does continue to feel like the Big 12 is on the most stable footing almost out of the three. More about the Big 12. The Big 12, according to CBS Sports, now sticking with this story, they're not backing off the original report. The Big 12 is considering adding up to 6 Pac-12 schools to fortify itself, CBS Sports reported Tuesday. Arizona, Arizona State, Colorado, and Utah are the primary teams targeted, with Oregon and Washington also under consideration. So I guess downgraded from, hey, there's a meeting set up, to they're still being considered by the Big 12. It's impossible to know how committed these schools actually are. Everybody is going to say something different to everybody. There are people that probably don't know exactly what's going on up at the highest of high levels because, again, look at how fast the stories broke with USC going to the Big 10, with Texas, Oklahoma going to the SEC. Like, we didn't hear anything for a long time, so you had to be in the high level meeting rooms to have any idea what was actually going on. I would perceive it like this. It seems like a race right now between the Big 12 and the Pac-12, where the Pac-12 wants to use this to race everybody to the finish line on a TV contract, get that signed, get a grant of rights signed, and survive at least for the next few years. Whereas the Big 12 wants to make inroads enough to pull off some of those teams before that can happen, to prevent that from actually being signed, granting their rights and giving that up for a TV contract. A little bit more insight from Pete Thamel, and I thought Pete Thamel, to me, would be the most reputable of anybody on this subject, now with ESPN, and he put together a pretty comprehensive piece on ESPN. But he says, what's unfolding in those three leagues is the quintessential college sports scenario where members are pledging fidelity to league members on Zooms while side texting about leaving for other leagues. Commissioners are chatting about potential deals among one another and privately crunching the numbers with consultants to poach other members. Conference allegiance these days comes with all the romance and permanence of a Tinder swipe. Nice reference there. But Thamel had this to say about the Big 12. He said, here's the reality for the Big 12. The league is the most stable among the next three because there are no programs that are clearly coveted by the Big 10 or the SEC. Quote, we're more galvanized than we've ever been, a league source said. There's no interest by Big 12 members in going to the Pac-12 or ACC. So that's a good sign. That is a good sign, at least, to hear that. It says it's been quite a first week for new Commissioner Brett Yormark, who has impressed the league's athletic directors and leaders with his humility and willingness to admit what he doesn't know. So, okay, Brett Yormark, that's an answer to one of the questions I've had, seemingly is on the job now and is involved in doing this, which I also would take to be a very good thing. I think there's nothing bad about that. And finally, one final note here from Thamel. This is on the ACC. He says a full merger doesn't make sense because it brings on more of the same issue. Too many second-tier schools that offer little high-end inventory. So what could the ACC do? Could it swing a Western division and cherry-pick 6 to 8 schools in the Midwest, TCU, Oklahoma State, or Houston, and the core of the remaining Pac-12? Or maybe target decent-sized media markets such as Cincinnati, Arizona State, or Colorado? Could it lure them with more money than a league like the Big 12? So, again, when you're reporting, a lot of this stuff is going to be somewhat contradictory because everybody has different ideas about where things are at and where it's going. But that was of note that Pete Thamel is saying, hey, that is something that could still be on the table, even though a Big 12 source is saying nobody's going anywhere. Maybe that's what the ACC would do. It's a lot of information that I just gave to you. It's a lot of information here and there and everywhere and doesn't always seem consistent. Welcome to conference realignment season, people. This is what we got. And it means that I have to hop on here before I go out to work to get you a video, but thus is life in realignment season. So enjoy the day. Subscribe to the channel if you have not. I should be going live tonight. Should be able to make that happen. So join the live show at around 7:30 tonight if you'd like as well. Take care, and I'll talk to you soon.